Someone call the VA, we've got a stray. That's what the foreman yelled when she walked by. They laughed at her limp, mocked her leg, and filmed it for TikTok. But they didn't know who she was, and they had no idea who was watching from the black SUV down the street. What happened next? Silenced an entire construction site. Forever. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Bakersfield, California. Noon sun like a hammer overhead. The construction site was alive with noise jackhammers, shouting, steel clanging against steel. Dust hung thick in the air, baking the sweat into our shirts before it even formed. I was new there. Second week as an apprentice electrician, mostly fetching tools and keeping out of the way. That day, I happened to be standing near the front gate, drinking warm water from a dented thermos, watching the heat ripple off the concrete, and that's when I saw her. She wasn't tall, but there was something steady about the way she walked, slow, deliberate, a slight limp in her left side, each step marked by the soft click of her prosthetic. She wore faded jeans, a sun-bleached green t-shirt, and a baseball cap in her hand. Not just any cap, it was Marine Corps issue, worn thin at the seams. Her ponytail stuck to the back of her neck, sweat trailing down from her jaw. No one knew who she was, and no one cared to ask. Rick Mathers, the site foreman, was the first to say something. Loud, of course, always loud. "Hey, someone call the VA." Looks like one of their strays wandered off. His voice boomed across the yard, chasing after her like a thrown rock. The laughter that followed was instant. One of the welders barked out, "Wrong turn. Ma'am, welfare office is the other way." Another guy up on the scaffolding started mimicking her limp, then pretended to trip, clutching his leg, crying out like it was the funniest thing in the world. More laughter, louder this time. A teenager who'd been hanging around the corner pulled out her phone and hit record. She was giggling as she whispered, "Wait till TikTok sees the RoboCop lady." Even the assistant foreman didn't flinch. He folded his arms and just watched, but the woman, she didn't stop. She didn't turn, didn't even glance at the crowd. Just held that Marine cap a little tighter and kept walking. That silence she carried, it was louder than any insult thrown at her. I don't know what hit me then. Maybe guilt, maybe shame for standing still. Because truth be told, I didn't laugh, but I didn't say anything either. I just watched. Watched as she moved past the gates, slow but upright. Watched as sweat dripped from her jaw to her shirt collar, soaked in dark. Watched the prosthetic leg catch the sunlight with each soft click. I wanted to say something, but the words never came. Maybe I thought I'd have another chance. Rick wasn't done, though. That man never knew when to stop. Looks like one of them wind-up toys from the VA got loose. He shouted, laughing so hard he slapped his own thigh. And again, the others followed suit, like hyenas never first to attack, but always ready to join in. She didn't flinch, didn't speed up, didn't slow down either. Her shoulders stayed squared, her gaze locked forward, not one step out of rhythm. Not 1 ounce of reaction. That's when I noticed the black SUV, parked half a block down, under the shade of a sycamore tree. It wasn't there earlier. The windows were tinted, engine still humming low, but I could see a figure inside. An older man, stone still, hands on the steering wheel, eyes locked on her. I couldn't explain it, but something about him. You just knew he wasn't there by accident. He wasn't there to watch the show, he was watching her. She crossed the intersection slowly, her leg dragging slightly on the curb. Never broke stride. And still, that SUV didn't move, just idling, like it was waiting for a signal. I felt something shift in the air, and I swear I'm not the type to believe in things like that. But the mood at the site, it changed. The laughter started dying down, not because people cared, but because something unseen was pressing down on us. The SUV door didn't open. Not yet, but I could tell whoever was inside. He wasn't done watching, and he wasn't watching for fun. I looked around. A few of the guys went back to work, swinging hammers half-heartedly. Some stared after her like they weren't quite sure why they felt uncomfortable. The girl with the phone lowered it, no longer giggling, now just watching. She wasn't the only one who'd caught something on camera, but this time, the story wasn't just in the insults. It was in the silence that followed. There was power in it. Not loud, not angry. Just the kind of power that made you feel small, like you'd just kicked a monument without knowing it. The woman kept walking, and the man in the SUV kept watching. And I just stood there, wondering who she really was and what was about to happen next. Because deep down, I knew something was coming. Not punishment, not revenge. Something bigger. The kind of moment that doesn't just shut people up, it makes them remember. And at that job site, under the heat and noise and dust, the first whisper of a storm had just passed through, and none of us even saw it coming. She crossed the street without once looking back. The heat shimmered off the pavement, her shadow long behind her. That marine cap was still in her hand, fingers wrapped around it like it held everything she had left. The VA clinic was a few blocks down, tucked between a pawn shop and an old laundromat. It wasn't much faded sign, peeling paint, busted vending machine by the entrance. But I'd seen vets go in and out of that place like it was the last building on earth that still remembered them. I turned to the security guard sitting just inside our site fence. Old guy, probably in his 70s, always reading newspapers. Barely spoke. I asked, "Who is she?" He didn't look up, just muttered, "That's Sergeant Diana Cole, Marine, 2 tours in Iraq." Then, after a pause, added softly, "She saved lives over there. More than you'll ever know," and went back to reading like he hadn't just dropped a brick of truth in my lap. Sergeant, not lady or miss or disabled vet. Sergeant. I turned my head slowly. She was halfway down the block now, her limp steady and sharp, and that SUV, it was still there. The man inside hadn't moved, didn't blink, but his grip on the steering wheel had changed. From where I stood, I could see the way his knuckles had gone white. A slow inhale through his nose. Then he reached for the phone. That was the first time I saw him shift, not in anger, but in decision. He tapped one number and brought the phone to his ear. His voice was low but deliberate. "It's Rourke," he said. "Send the convoy, full unit." He didn't say please, we didn't need to. Logan Rourke wasn't just some old vet sitting in an SUV. He was a retired Navy SEAL, and he had just made a call that would change the course of everyone's day. While the call ended, Logan didn't drive off. He just sat there, watching her until she disappeared past the laundromat. Then he lowered the phone into his lap and stared out through the windshield like he was back in the field. And in a way, he was. Because years earlier, in a different kind of hell, Logan had already seen her once before. Fallujah, 2007. It was chaos, smoke, screaming. The hum of distant gunfire always crawling closer. Logan's unit had been hit while escorting a civilian convoy through a dense corridor. First blast took out the lead Humvee. Second blast threw him sideways into a concrete wall. His vision was fogged with blood, ears ringing like a church bell had gone off inside his skull. And then, she came running. A Marine, helmet crooked, eyes like flint. She ran across the open street, bullets snapping past her, and pulled Logan's teammate from the burning wreckage. Then she went back and came out with the corpsman, one arm draped around her neck, the other hanging limp. She went a third time. Logan remembered watching her silhouette disappear through the smoke, heart pounding like it would break through his ribs. But that time, she didn't come back whole. The blast caught her mid-stride. When she emerged again, she was crawling, dragging a wounded private with one leg mangled behind her. She passed out before the helicopter landed. He remembered the name that came through the comms, later Sergeant Diana Cole. He remembered the report Silver Star recommended. Purple Heart confirmed. But she never showed up to the ceremony. Logan had stood there in dress blues, shaking hands and smiling for cameras. And every time someone thanked him, all he could think was, it should have been her standing here too. back in the present. Logan blinked slowly, as if pulling himself from a memory that had never fully let go. His fingers tapped once on the dash, then silence, but not for long. Down the block, the first of the black SUVs turned the corner. I spotted it before anyone else did. Polished, low growl in the engine, windows like obsidian, then another, and a third, moving in formation. They didn't honk, didn't swerve, just approached like a silent procession. The rumble of those engines wasn't like construction trucks. It was heavier, more precise, and it was the kind of sound that made people turn their heads without even knowing why. Rick, the foreman, glanced up mid-joke. His laugh cut off halfway. A couple of workers near the scaffolding paused. The girl with the phone lowered it again. Something in the air had changed. No sirens, no shouts, just the low, steady rhythm of something important closing in. I felt it in my chest, a kind of pressure, like a wave rolling in just before it hits the shore. No one said anything, but everyone felt it. Those SUVs weren't there by chance, and whoever was inside, they weren't tourists. They were coming for someone. Rick looked around, uneasy now. He didn't laugh anymore. He just watched. The vehicles slowed as they reached the front of the site, and then they stopped. Clean, perfect, 3 deep across the gate. Doors didn't open right away. They weren't in a hurry. That made it worse. It was like the whole world had hit pause. I looked back down the street. Diana was gone already inside the VA, most likely. She had no idea what was unfolding behind her. But I did. I didn't know exactly what was about to happen, but something inside me said this wasn't about payback. This was about something far heavier. This was about honor, and it was coming, not with noise, but with purpose. A storm not of anger, but of respect was arriving, and it was about to remind every single one of us what it looked like. When silence finally stood up and spoke, the SUVs didn't idle for long. Within seconds, the doors opened, a driver's side first, then the rears. 7 men stepped out in perfect sync, like they'd rehearsed it in silence. They didn't wear uniforms, no camo, no rank patches, just fitted dark shirts, black tactical pants, boots that didn't make a sound on gravel, but you could feel it. The way they moved controlled, calculated, like a unit that had cleared more rooms than any of us could count. They didn't look around. They scanned, each one assessing the site like they were about to breach a hostile compound. Not a single word, not a single smile. The sun beat down, but they didn't flinch. The tallest one in front, older, salt and pepper hair, arms covered in quiet tattoos, broke formation first. He walked toward the gate, his boots crunching over the gravel like thunder. And when he stepped through the fence, I saw Rick Mathers freeze. I mean freeze. Mouth half open, clipboard hanging useless from one hand. Suddenly, the man who'd been barking insults like a king had nothing left to say. The SEAL stopped just 2 feet from him, didn't raise his voice, didn't puff his chest. He just looked Rick straight in the eyes and asked one question. Who just humiliated Sergeant Diana Cole? That name hit like a gunshot. Everyone around the site heard it and everyone felt it. Rick blinked, then laughed nervously, like he thought it was still a joke. I don't know what you mean. Man, he said, trying to smile. It was just a bit of fun. Nobody meant nothing by it. The SEAL didn't blink, didn't move. But when he spoke next, his words were sharp as steel. She served 2 combat tours in Iraq, in Fallujah. He took 1 step closer. She carried 3 wounded men out of a burning convoy under sniper fire. Now the silence was different, heavier, real. That last man was me. My heart dropped. The guy in the SUV, the one who'd been watching. This wasn't some distant respect thing. This was personal. She lost her leg doing it, he said. Voice even, but laced with something deeper. And she never once asked for recognition. He turned his head slightly, just enough for everyone within earshot to catch his next words. But when I saw her mocked, by men too soft to know what courage looks like, I knew it was time someone stood up for her the way she stood for us. Rick had nothing to say. His mouth opened again, then shut. His hands trembled. That's when one of the younger SEALs stepped forward. Buzz cut, broad shoulders, holding a phone in his gloved hand. "We recorded everything," he said flatly. "From the sidewalk. Every word, every laugh, every insult." Rick's face turned chalk white. Someone behind me muttered, "Oh, hell," under their breath. "In case you forgot," the young SEAL added, mocking a decorated veteran on public property. While on the clock, "That's not just disgusting, it's actionable." Logan, now I knew his name, stepped in front of Rick one last time. "She didn't want attention. She never has." His voice dropped, lower, firmer. "But when we were bleeding out and insurgents were closing in, she ran through fire. 3 times. He paused, gaze like stone. "While men like you would have been begging for a chopper." No one spoke. Even the workers who'd laughed minutes ago they couldn't lift their heads. Some looked at their boots. Others glanced toward the street. And then Logan turned. His eyes scanned the block until they landed on her, Sergeant Cole. She had just exited the VA building, a small white bag in one hand, her head slightly bowed. She hadn't seen the SUVs. Not yet. Logan took a breath, then began walking, not fast, not dramatic, just deliberate. Behind him, the 6 other SEALs fell into formation, boots in sync, shoulders squared, a silent honor guard. The entire construction site froze, no hammers, no welding sparks. Just the soft rhythm of boots on gravel. She looked up and stopped. For a moment, she didn't move. Her eyes narrowed, unsure of what she was seeing. But when Logan got close, something shifted in her face. Recognition. Real, deep recognition. But not just of him, of the weight in the air. Logan stopped a few feet away. He didn't speak right away. Then, in a voice calm and respectful, he asked, "Permission to honor you, ma'am." Her mouth parted slightly. No sound. She just blinked. And before she could answer, Logan raised his hand in a crisp, textbook salute. Every SEAL behind him followed simultaneous, flawless. Not for show, not for video. For her, Diana Cole didn't cry. She didn't smile. But she stood up straighter. Her right hand rose slow, then locked into position. A salute returned, precise and steady. It wasn't pride. It was reflex, a reflex formed in fire. They held it for a full beat. Then Logan lowered his hand, stepped forward, and reached into his vest. He pulled something out small, round, silver, a challenge coin. The Brotherhood coin of the Navy SEALs. "It's not given," he said. "It's earned." Then he placed it in her hand, folded her fingers gently around it. "You earned this in Fallujah. You just never got it, because you were too busy saving lives." I don't think she breathed for a moment. Her hand stayed closed over that coin like it was holding her steady. And then she nodded. Just once. Around them. No one spoke. No phones out. Just eyes watching, listening, feeling. I realized then I wasn't just witnessing a confrontation. This wasn't about shame or punishment. This was a ceremony. A salute without a stage. A tribute carved not in granite, but in silence. And for the first time all day, everyone on that job site finally understood what respect actually looks like. She didn't say anything as she turned to walk away. No grand speech, no final stare down. She just tucked the coin into her pocket, nodded once to Logan, and walked off toward the sun-drenched sidewalk with the same steady limp she had walked in with. But everything else around us had changed. By that evening, the video hit the internet. Not just one clip, dozens. Different angles, different voices, but the same truth. The title that spread the fastest said simply, "They laughed." Then 7 SEALs showed up. Within 12 hours, it was everywhere. Veteran forums reposted it. News anchors picked it up. Even national figures retweeted it with captions like, "This is what honor looks like." But the real impact was local. Phone lines at the construction company were flooded, emails stacked in thousands, and the comments unrelenting. Words like disgrace, shameful, fire the foreman. They trended for 2 straight days. No one wanted excuses, they wanted accountability. By Friday morning, the company posted an official statement. I remember refreshing the website at 6:03 mem and seeing it in bold black letters. "We deeply regret the public disrespect shown to Sergeant Diana Cole. Her service, sacrifice, and dignity represent the highest ideals of our nation. Immediate corrective action has been taken. Rick Mathers was removed from the project, reassigned indefinitely to an off-site storage facility." They didn't call it a firing, but we all knew what it was. And for once, nobody defended him. Not even the guys who used to laugh the loudest. Not even the assistant foreman who had stood there doing nothing. Because once the truth hit the light, it burned away the shadows. 1 week later, something unexpected happened. Roosevelt High School, just a couple miles from the site, invited Diana to speak for Veterans Appreciation Week. She almost declined, but someone convinced her, this isn't about being a hero, it's about being honest. And so, on a cool Friday morning, she stepped onto the stage in the school auditorium. No dress blues, no medals, just a clean white blouse, dark slacks, and that old Marine Corps cap finally on her head. The room held its breath as she crossed to the podium, her prosthetic tapping softly against the wood floor. She didn't speak long. No slideshow, no battle stories, just her voice low, calm, and certain. "Scars," she said, "don't mean you're broken. They mean you survived something that tried to break you, and you kept walking." The students rose to their feet. Some clapped, some cried, but no one forgot. Not that day, not her words. Back at the site, something else happened. It didn't make the news, but I saw it with my own eyes. Near the front gate, where workers clocked in each morning, the company laid a single brick framed in steel, sealed in clear concrete. The engraving was simple. SGT Diana Cole, built on respect. It wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. It sat low, level with the ground. But every man who passed it noticed. Some stopped. Some nodded. A few reached out and touched it. And slowly, that brick became more than a marker. It became a mirror. A quiet reminder of who we are when no one's watching. Over the weeks, it didn't fade. It spread. Schools began visiting the site. Teachers brought students. Parents brought kids. And then came the day I won't forget. I was walking past the front gate when I saw her, Diana, sitting on a bench outside the cafe nearby. She was sipping coffee, reading a local newspaper. That's when a little boy, maybe 7, walked up to her. Red hoodie, jeans, and a prosthetic arm peeking from his sleeve. His freckles were the first thing I noticed. The second was his eyes locked onto hers. He didn't speak right away, just stood in front of her with quiet focus. Then he said, "My mom says I'm like you." She looked up, surprised, but calm. "She says I don't need 2 arms to be strong," he continued. "She said maybe I could be a hero too someday." Diana leaned forward. Her voice dropped low, certain, full of weight. "You already are," she said. "Every day you wake up and choose to keep going. You're a hero." He lit up, not the polite kind of smile kids give when they're told to. The real kind, the one that starts in the chest and climbs all the way to the eyes. He ran back to his mother, who stood nearby, already wiping her cheeks. And Diana. She went back to sipping her coffee like it was just another morning, but I knew better. That moment was everything. The story didn't stop there. Veterans from across the state started visiting the brick. Some rode in on motorcycles, Leather jackets faded from years on the road. Others came quietly, limping, leaning on canes, touching the name like it was part of their own. They didn't speak. They didn't pose for pictures. They just stood there remembering, and the community followed. The company expanded training across all regional crews. A new program started Respect in the Trades. It wasn't mandatory, but men showed up, not because they had to, because they wanted to. One worker shared a story about his brother, also a disabled vet, turned down from 4 jobs because of safety concerns. Another admitted he used to laugh too until he saw what it cost them. The change wasn't fast, but it was real. And as for me, I go by that gate every morning. I stop. I look at the brick, and I think about that moment, when I stayed silent, when I should have spoken up. So now I tell this story, not to make up for it, but to pass it on. Because maybe you're standing at a gate right now too. And if you ever see someone mocked for what they've lost, someone laughed at for the strength it took just to show up, I hope you remember Diana Cole, and I hope you don't stay silent like I once did.